In this video, I'm going to show you how Clay books us over 100 sales calls a month. You see, most people just think that it's a fancy spreadsheet tool that integrates with AI. But if you use it right, it becomes extremely powerful for lead generation because it lets you find and use information to personalize your emails at scale. And if you do any sort of outreach, you know personalization is the way to get replies in 2025 going into 2026, which is why I'm going to walk you through exactly how to use Clay to do just that. Everything from building your lead list, enriching and cleaning the data, to finding the information that you need to write emails that actually get replies. Now, before we can start enriching data in Clay, we need leads that we can actually work with. And as much as you can do all of this in Clay, I think the best way to build a targeted lead list at the moment is in Apollo. Because if you just email a bunch of random prospects, you're probably going to waste a bunch of money on leads that aren't really a good fit in the first place. So under email status, we're going to include verified, unverified, user managed, update required, and even unavailable. And I'm going to show you why we include that one in a sec. Then we're going to want to jump into our titles. For this one, I'm going to keep it simple: owner, founder, CEO, director. And then for the location, I'm going to include both US and Canada for the person location, so where the contact actually is located, and company location, so where the company is currently. For employees, we're going to go 5 to 100. This is just, based on what we've seen with some other lists in the past. And then from here, we're going to stack keywords. So you can do this a bunch of different ways. We used a GPT to create a bunch of keywords that we think will be relevant in this situation. And then I went through the list, page by page, looked at each one of the companies, found some that maybe weren't a fit, and included some relevant exclusions. We also included the industry here just to kind of pack it a little bit more. Now, that's pretty much all you need to come up with a pretty targeted lead list. Now, the next step is going to be exporting that lead list to a CSV. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to copy the URL that you just created in Apollo and bring it over to a tool like AmpLeads. So if you're not familiar with AmpLeads, it's pretty much just an Apollo scraper that allows you to pull the leads for a fraction of the price. And then you'll drop that in here, choose the number of leads, give it a name, and then start scraping. Now that we have our raw CSV, we need to pull it into Clay and clean it up. Because as good as it is, Apollo data tends to be pretty messy. Company names often have LLC in them or Inc., or in some cases we're even missing emails or other crucial data. So if you try to just use this data as is, your emails will obviously come off a little bit sloppy, maybe unprofessional, or you just won't have the information that you need. And this is where Clay really starts showing its value, because we're going to use it to find the missing data, normalize the data that we do have, and verify all of our emails at scale. So jumping into Clay here, you can see all you pretty much have to do is import via CSV, and pull your list in. Once you have your list in here, you're going to want to do a few things. So you can see here we've got Inc., LLC, etc. on company names that we don't want. So we're just going to normalize that real quick. So I pretty much just went in, insert column, add enrichment, normalize company. And you can see here, I just ran this enrichment on every single one of the rows. And the result here is a far cleaner output. There's obviously some other things that you can use as well if you use these variables in the copy. We don't. So we don't usually take it too far other than this, but we'll leave it at that for now. And then the next thing that I want to do is find the missing email. So we'll go filter, add filter, email is empty, to find all of the emails that are missing. These are contacts that we had the first name, last name, company name, so on and so forth for in Apollo, but Apollo just didn't have their email. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a waterfall in order to leverage different data providers to find those emails. So basically what we're going to do here is we're going to go insert column, search, work email, and then we're going to create a waterfall. So essentially what this is going to do is it's going to search a bunch of different data providers sequentially until you find the email that you need. You can jump into full configuration here to choose which sequencer or which sequence the providers are used, and you can reorganize them here, leverage the ones that you have API keys for, or use Clay data if you don't have a necessary API. So you pretty much just want to map your fields here, company name, normalize company name, ensure that all is good. And then I generally turn validation off. We don't want to validate with these providers because we're going to use our own. So again, you can see here, there's a couple that we do have API keys for. We're going to want to use those first. And then the ones that we don't, we'll list after. And then you're pretty much just going to, once you've decided which ones you want to use, the providers that you think are best, I'm going to click save and I'm going to click run. Okay, so as you can see here, we're pretty much running it through each one of the providers sequentially until we find a email. And then you can see as it finds the email here, it basically stops and doesn't continue running, and then ultimately merges all of the found emails into one column. Now, once you've merged all of your emails together, you pretty much just want to verify those to make sure that the emails that you're reaching out to will actually be able to receive emails in the first place. So for us, we use Million Verifier, and you can see we have it hooked up here via HTTP API. And this is a good way to leverage APIs within Clay if Clay doesn't have a native plugin for it. So in this case, Million Verifier does not, but we always use it here. You pretty much just have to pull your API key here, use a GET request, and then it basically returns whether or not it is verified. All right, so then from here, you pretty much want to go to filter, add filter, and then we want result is equal to OK. And this is going to show us all of the emails that were validated. So 900 of the 1540 were actually emails that will be able to receive some sort of outreach without bouncing. Once we have that set, that's when we can get into the fun stuff with personalization, because obviously you don't want to personalize a bunch of emails that you can't even deliver to in the first place. Now, if you want to generate leads without spending hours building Clay tables, or learning all of these tools yourself, you can apply to work with us via the first link below. We've built this entire system for our clients, and we've used it to book over 2,000 sales calls in the last year. Just like one of our clients who booked 42 calls in just 30 days. So if you want to see if we can do the same for you, apply to work with us below and we'll chat soon. But either way, enriching your data is just the start. Next, you obviously need to use that information to stand out from the thousands of other cold emailers out there. And that's where personalization comes in. See, in 2025, cold email is more competitive than ever. And I imagine it's just gonna get worse going into 2026. Everyone's just sending these generic messages, and truthfully, like, prospects can spot them from a mile away. So if you want to get responses, you obviously need to know who exactly you're talking to and what exactly it is that they want. But finding that information manually, going through every single prospect sequentially on your own would just take ages. And that's obviously where Clay comes in again, because instead of doing any of the research manually, Clay can personalize data on thousands of leads at once. All right, so now I'm going to show you how we use Clayagent to come up with personalizations, do some market research on every single prospect, and even come up with, conditional logic for situations where maybe certain information isn't available. So in this first one, we wanted to pull the client's or the prospect's case study. So essentially, if a person was doing it manually, we'd go to this person's website, look at their case study section, look at different sections about their results, and then determine, what their best case study was or who their most desirable client would be. And we did this because if we're pitching a solution that helps them find people like their best client, that's obviously going to be super desirable for them and obviously relevant. So what we did was insert a column, add enrichment, and then we said use AI. Essentially, we wanted to write out our prompt here. So basically, we told them exactly what we are looking for. So I want to go to each prospect's website and find their top performing case study. And you can literally keep it as simple as that. Obviously, you can go into some prompting jujitsu, and there's a ton of ways to really optimize this, but Clay's made it easy that you can literally just type what you want, click generate, and they're going to sculpt your prompt. So again, I've already done this, but I want to show you the exact process here and what it would look like. So you can see here it gives context, the objectives, the instructions, and then conditional logic. So, if this doesn't exist, how it should be validating it, what the output should look like, so on and so forth. And then what you're going to want to do here when it comes to Clayagent, you can use web research or create or modify content. Web research is going to be more expensive because you're actually searching the web for things. Create or modify contents can be super cheap because you're just manipulating data that you already have. So in situations that you have like a company description, you can often use this to come up with some interesting prompts. But this is essentially what it's going to look like. You'll probably want to jump down to like 4.0 mini or 4.1 nano. Those are the two that we're kind of seeing work really well. I usually stick with the trusty 4.0 mini, and then you're going to want to run that. Usually what it ends up working out to, and I'll just cancel this one here. Usually what it ends up working out to is something like 0.001 per row that you run. So you can obviously do the math, that times 900. And then if you run multiple personalizations, it's really not that expensive. The one thing that I want to show you though in this prompt that I put together is to essentially come up with this conditional logic. So if no specific names are found, I want to identify the industry that they focus on, or rather the services that they focus on. So you can see here in this situation, we found a bunch of prospects, and the response is now prospects like Vexel, or prospects like Akatsuki. But you can see here in this situation, we weren't able to find any sort of case studies. So instead of saying prospects like your best case study, we use prospects looking for branding services. So it accomplishes a very similar level of relevance, but without having the information that is available. In other situations, maybe we run the prompt and then we create this logic where If the information was found, we run this version of the copy. If the information was not found, we run another version of the copy. But we wanted to keep it all simple in one prompt here, just to kind of tidy that up. I also want to add a formula. So you can see here, there's some situations where there's a period at the end, some situations where there's not. And we want to be able to use this in a sentence, right? So we want this to be a variable in our email copy. So what I'm going to show you how to do here too is just create a quick formula. And formulas is a great way to manipulate text without using AI in any way. So this costs you $0. So I often use it to, you can see here the example, get someone's first name from a full name, or create a full name from first name and last name. Just basically manipulating data that you already have and changing it around. So in this case here, we want to take the response. So insert formula. I want you to format response, this one here, so it can be used in email copy. Basically, just remove any punctuation at the end. And then we're gonna, again, generate formula. You don't have to be crazy with this. Just tell them what you want. It'll come up with it. And you can see here, boom, looks good on this side. All the punctuation is removed, and that's your clean output. And again, you can use that for anything. That's just one of the many applications. And then on top of that, we also wanted to find the specific industry that they worked within. So you can see here, again, we just went to Claygent, ran for mini. I want you to take the input, determine which industry the company in this table primarily serves, browse the website, determine what sort of industry based on normalized name and website URL. This one we didn't use Clay's prompt for. I can't remember why I didn't do this, but essentially I just wanted it to be very, very specific. We obviously got a bunch of results here, but then now you can see there are some that we didn't. So what I want to do here is come up with a conditional logic for situations that we don't have it. And what I want to show you here too is Clay's new tool called Sculptor. So Sculptor is going to help us do whatever we want within Clay. Basically, anything that you want to solve, you can pretty much just type it in here and it's going to show you how to do it. So I'm going to tell them my exact situation. I ran a personalization for a piece of copy and some of the results didn't have data. Can you help me create a conditional logic so that we can run an alternative for those without data? The ones without data would be those that returned no in target industry. Cool. And again, this is in beta, so we'll see what it comes up with. I definitely think this is going to be a valuable tool going forward, so I just wanted to showcase this just a little bit to see what it can come up with for you guys. So you can see here, if target industry equals no, some options run a different AI prompt, use a fallback value like a generic industry or service description, pull from another existing field, run a different enrichment. Based on your table, I noticed you already have case studies field, which either case study company names, or would you like to use that as your fallback when, or we want a new enrichment? Let's see if it can even come up with the idea for us. So I maybe gave it a little bit too much credit, but let's just try a different approach. So now it's actually going to look at the prompt that I used for client industry and target industry and come up with a new prompt to be able to find this in a different way. Awesome. So now it's pretty much come up with a solution for us. Basically a conditional logic that only targets the ones that said no and then looks for them in a different way. So you can see here, it gives me the option to set up the column. I'm going to click yes. And it's even got the conditional logic baked in, which is awesome. Only run if target industry equals no. And I like this. Again, I'm just going to switch it to 4.0 mini. We're going to save, and I'll just run it on the first 10 rows and we'll see what happens. As you can see here, the conditional logic was not met for all of these, but we'll try it here. And perfect. You can see that it worked exactly as we would have expected. So now there are no situations where we don't have data, and at least has its best guess in that situation. And we're set to use all of these variables in the copy. So now at this point, you just want to download your CSV or send to your sequencer of choice, anything from Smartlead, Instantly, Email Bison, so on and so forth, line it up with the campaign, and you're good to go. And that's exactly how I use Clay to book hundreds of meetings every single month. But this is obviously just the first step, because to turn these leads into actual sales calls, you obviously need a killer email campaign. So if that's something you're interested in creating, watch this video next and I'll see you there.